Um, so I guess, are there any of your immediate family members that came from other countries?
Not the immediate family, no, they were all born and raised in the United States.
Okay.
Did they come from, like, what country of origin, I mean, besides United States, like, would they have come from, did they come from Germany, I know?
Mine was Germany to Russia, and from Russia to the United States.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what mine was. I know they were Scottish, and then I think Irish was the two main ones.
You hear that? You got some Irish.
Yeah.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, the next one is, I guess, your full names, and then if you had any nicknames growing up, or if there's any stories behind those nicknames.
Or your names, period, how did you get your
Or
names?
that too.
Yeah.
Well, Vera done mine, my sister, done my name. And I was looking through some of the papers yesterday, and it's spelled different than what it is on my birth certificate.
Really? What's it spelled as?
Well, it's spelled Maribel, which I would prefer instead of Marybelle.
Oh, okay.
Ah, interesting.
But that's the way it is on my birth certificate.
Okay.
It's Joanne Maribel Randall.
Huh.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hey, Dad.
I didn't have no nickname.
Didn't have any nicknames?
Oh, I did. They called me Joni.
Joni?
No.
Mhm. An awful lot. Yeah. My brother's wives called me Joni.
Whenever I heard Gary Lee, I knew I was in trouble.
Does that sound familiar?
It's understandable.
Get in trouble a lot then?
Nope.
Just when he did, you know.
When Drew announced he wanted to go snowboarding, I said, boy, you can have all that snow you want. I had to walk out with no insulated clothes whatsoever to get the cows when there's snow up to your knees, and they froze to death by the time you got them brought in the milk.
Yeah.
I had no love for snow whatsoever.
Oh,
I still don't.
Yeah.
interesting that we settled in Kansas then.
I know, of all places.
Yep.
What?
Did you both grow up in Kansas then, or?
We both
I know
grew
that.
up.
You
Oh,
both-
go ahead.
Go ahead.
We both grew up in Kansas. I grew up
Ness County, both of us.
in
in
both
Ness
of us
County.
in Ness County.
That kind of leads to
She
the
was
next
in-
question.
Yeah, Ness County. I lived in Ransom.
Northern, and I was in the southwest.
Yeah, which was, what are they, 12 miles apart?
Well, more than that.
Is that how you guys met then?
No.
No,
Sorry,
you
I'm just
jumping-
hijacking
you
this.
jumped-
She
jumping
was,
ahead.
she was a soda jerk, and I went with all the soda jerks that worked in that. That's what.
See, I find out all these things when he does the talking. No, I worked in Ransom at, after my senior year as a soda jerk. And Mom would always come and get me. She would never let me drive after dark, because it was always after dark. And then I would go roller skating upstairs above the theater. They had a roller skating rink. And one night I said, "Can I go to roller skating till you get in to town?" And she said, "No, you better not, because you get in trouble." I said, "Get in trouble? I won't get in trouble."
Yeah.
Well, I went up there anyway and ended up
Dislocating an elbow.
Oh my God.
dislocating my elbow.
That was one of the questions that Randy had when he was telling that story
Oh.
of your roller skating injury.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, one of the craft boys was trying to teach me to roller skate backwards. I could roller skate good forwards, but I couldn't roller skate backwards.
Yeah.
And it looked easy, you know. So I tried, and that was my first and last time.
In Nemes.
Oh, yes.
That's where we
So-
went for our 8th grade party, was a skating ring at Ransom, but they didn't have one in Ness. And then next year they built one in Ness.
It had stairs up it, you know, so people could get up and peek over the railing to see
It
who
was-
was up there.
And there was people that missed it and went down the
And
steps.
went down the
Down the
steps.
steps. Seems
I
kind of
know.
dangerous.
And it was quite a ways down, you know, 'cause
Wow.
it was over the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was dangerous.
But I
place to
loved roller
skate.
skating, I really did. I really did.
I didn't. I could not
He
balance
couldn't
myself
stand
on a pair
it.
of skates whatsoever.
I never could ice skate, but I could roller skate.
Ice skating I did, and I could do that, but not roller skate.
So then when I decided to move to Ransom,
Ransom.
or Ness City, I mean, from Ransom, I lived with Vera and the kids, my sister. And they lived out on a farm, just a little ways out of town, 3/4 of a mile out, for a little bit, and then they moved in town, up above the toggery shop, a great big apartment up there. And we were all up there then. And then where I worked was just down the stairs and
That's convenient.
in the door. But she worked in the Rexall drugstore across the street. So sisters competed against sisters. But we had more fun. That was one of my fun times in my life. I really think about too, because everybody met in the drugstores, you know.
Yeah.
And one night, one guy got mad enough at one of the girls that he stapled her dress to the wall.
Oh my god.
Of course, the Coles always went home at night. We run the place ourselves at night. That's when the trouble started, but no, not really. We had a lot of fun. Yes, we did too, honey. Yes, we did. Yeah. But Mom got in trouble. Great grandma got in trouble for roller skating night and stuff. And when Mom came in, she said, "Where's Joanne?" She's at the hospital.
She got in trouble.
She got in trouble.
She got in trouble. And then that same time, that's weird because I had dislocated my elbow and it was very painful. And he just told Mom, "You hold her down and I'll
Pop it back in.
pop it back in." So I had my arm in a cast, and there'd been a guy coming out to the house talking to me. And I wouldn't go with him, but he'd come out there and talk to me. And I really didn't care for him, but in the meantime, he had slid into a base in baseball and dislocated his shoulder. So I had my left arm in a sling, and he had his right arm in a sling. And he wanted to know if I would go to him to the Trigger County Fair and walk in. So we went. If we didn't have more people stop and ask, "Now, how on earth did that?" That's the only time I ever went with him. I figured he was harmless if he was, you know.
It's a good bet then, yeah.
Well, he was quite a little bit older than I was. She said, "What's going on?" Okay, now what?
I guess the next question is, I guess where were you born, and then the names of all your siblings. And
Okay, I was born at home, and I never know for sure whether they're his oldest or Vera's oldest. I'd have to look that up. But of course, they're 14 years older than I was.
Right.
I was the youngest by 14 years. But
Gilbert was the one that was 14 years.
Gilbert was, I had Gilbert,
Vera was
Aaron,
almost 18 years old.
Vera, and me. And so the boys' dad had helped. The boys always worked on the farm, and we had lots of. Then neighbors helped neighbors all the time.
right.
One of the neighbors had a team of horses called Smokey and Ribbon. I can remember them. They were great big, like draft horses.
Yeah.
And Dad borrowed them a lot of times they thrashed wheat and everything, and so they'd go around the county. And I can remember when they come there to thrash, then the woman always had to fix the meals.
Yeah.
And I could remember they'd be as many as 20 or 30 men, that Mom fed. My mom, hi, Sigurd. My mom was a fabulous cook.
Yeah.
Fabulous cook. She could just about cook anything. And Dad always said, he was always a big eater. He wasn't a big man, but he was average. But he always said that I like pie of any kind, hot or cold. And that's what we had.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
But we all had to work. And when the
I got
kids,
you.
by the
I got
time
you.
I was big enough, the boys had went away to service.
Mm-hmm.
And Vera had gotten married. Because Dean and I are just a little ways apart. Her first son and I were just a little ways apart,
Yeah.
being born. And so I had got all the work, had to be the boy. And I can remember riding out on Dad always hollered, "Time to get up." Oh, it's dark yet. And we'd have to feed the cows, go out in the pasture, or in the field, and pick up the bundles and bring them in and feed the cows, and then we'd have to get them into. Say, Mom, you almost got it. And then we'd have to milk them,
Mm-hmm.
and then separate the milk, and then get ready to go to school.
So what time do you have to get up then?
Oh, we got up like
Yeah.
4:30 or 5.
Yeah.
Yep.
I hated it. I think that's why I don't like getting up early now. I just think it's something that's hard. I just do not like it at all.
Huh?
And Dad was one of these that at night, he never went to get the cows till at 8:30, 9 o'clock till it was dark at night, you know. And then we milked at 9:30 or 10 o'clock. Well, then you still had to separate the milk, you know. But that's just the way he was. I can remember Mom going out and listening. She'd tell me, now, be real quiet. I'm going to listen and see if your dad's all right. And she could hear him whistling, you know, by the standing out. So she knew he was all right, that a bull or somebody hadn't gotten him, you know, or hurt him.
Yeah.
I can remember doing that.
Yeah.
But we had, and I had to walk to school. I had to walk a mile, and I walked across pastures.
Uphill both ways.
Shut up, honey. No, only uphill one way. Across the spillway of the dam, and then on over up to a pasture, a neighbor's pasture. And it was all right till I put cattle in there, and I didn't like that. They were usually somewhere else where I couldn't see them, which was good because I was scared to death of them.
Really?
And they call that the school end off on that part of the farm.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
The school end of the
school was
farm?
over there, cottage school. And anyway, I think when I started, there was only about 7 kids that went.
Really?
When I finished, there was 5. Yeah. So, and I went to 6th grade there.
6th grade?
Yeah. And then, sorry. And then we went to junior high in Ransom. And my Aunt Hazel was my teacher.
Really?
7th and 8th grade, yeah. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
Okay, Dad, your turn. Where'd you go to school?
Well,
And siblings too.
I was turned 5 in January, and following September, the teacher came to the folks and said that she didn't have any first graders. She wanted if they would enroll me. Of course, back then they didn't have kindergarten. So I went to school at a rock schoolhouse, 2 miles north of the house, first grade. Then we moved over to the Bonner place, and I went 2nd through the 6th grade. We moved, Dad bought Selborne in 46, we moved to town. I was in 6th grade. And I went to city school from then on. But country school was only 8 months, and city school was 9 months. So when I moved to town, I was way ahead of where they were at in the lessons.
Yeah.
So the first month, I didn't have to do anything because I was already ahead of them. I'd done all of what they were doing.
Yeah.
Did you help with farming and stuff? You did, didn't you? You drove a tractor
Well,
when you were
yeah,
young?
when I was 5, that summer, I drove a John Deere tractor
At
on
5?
lugs.
At 5?
On school at 5.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
Well, see, this was during World War II, and they didn't have nobody to hire, so I started driving. Then when we moved over there in 41, the neighbors thrashed, and I drove the tractor pulling the bundles into the thrash machine.
Yeah.
Tie a rope around it, and they'd all slide off, and I'd drive back out, and there was 3 guys out there, and they'd pitch the bundles back onto the sled, and then I'd drive it back in. I did that all 4 years or 5 years of World War II. I drove tractor every year. And then Dad pulled his ligaments when I was a 4th grader in his back, and so he couldn't do anything. So Mom and I did the combining.
Wow.
Mom was on the combine, I was on the tractor pulling the combine. And we had wheat that made 60 bushel an acre. And we had a little pickup that would haul about 70 bushel. And the hired girl was driving it. We had Reba Coker was our hired girl, and she drove the pickup. And then Mom and I did the combining.
So is that what you remember about World War II then? Like, did anyone in your family fight in World War
Oh,
II?
yeah,
Well,
both my brothers did.
We
Both
were
brothers did?
we were within 2 miles of a gunnery range or a bombing range, and we had B-25s, B-29s, B-26s was circling. They used our house as a turning point.
Really?
And the B-29s were low enough that you could see the light bulbs hanging in the planes. The bomb bay doors were all wide open when they flew over.
Wow.
And I was looking out, watching the plane. We had a 2-story house, old rock house. And we watched them, and all of a sudden one of them went, and they saw smoke. And all the phone started, and of course there's a party line, so the lady
Uh-huh.
was trying to call in to tell them the plane had crashed.
Wow.
And so we loaded in the car and we drove over there. Mom drove us over. And we got out, drove right up to where that crash was. All the fumes from the gasoline and everything, you could smell it just plain as day. And nobody survived the crash.
Really?
There was some parachutes open, but all was just a torso was attached to it, and the rest of it
Wow.
blown to pieces.
Yeah.
The sheriff came out, and he was a smoker.
Oh.
And he went to light up his pipe, and a guy grabbed it and just broke it in two and threw it on the ground. He says, "You try to kill us all," he told the sheriff.
Well, there's fuel all
Right,
over.
fumes
yeah,
was all there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fumes.
And that was during World War II. This was B-26 that went down. 5 people were in it and was killed.
Huh.
They were out of Dodge City. Then we had flying out of Dodge City, they were flying out of Garden City, they were flying out of Pratt, and they were flying out of Walker Air Force Base. That's where the B-29s were stationed. East of Hayes was the B-29s. And during that time, you couldn't get flashlight batteries. So the guys that were guarding over there where the crash site was, my uncle had home brew, so he'd take it over there and trade them home brew for flashlight batteries. Because we hunted coons at night, and you have to have D-cell, and when the flashlight would hold 6 D-cell batteries.
Yeah.
I've got the flashlight here now, but we would hunt coons with the dogs. We did that at nighttime, and on weekends we hunted coyotes.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody came in,
And-
and my uncle learned to fly. World War II, they drafted him, and when he went down to Kansas City, took his physical, he had flat feet. They wouldn't take him, so he 4F'd him. He learned to fly then, and he'd go out and he'd fly and spot those coyotes. He'd tell them where they were at. We had a neighbor that was killed hunting coyotes. He had mounted 2 12-gauge shotguns on his plane, and to go down to close to the ground, and he could shoot the coyotes with the plane. He and his son was in it, and he got too low, and he went to turn. His wing hit to the ground, and
Wow.
Oh
and
my.
it killed him. His son survived.
We hunted skunks. And we didn't hunt them because the skins were worth a lot. We didn't hunt them, they trapped them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And my youngest brother Gilbert, and Dad and I would go, and we had lights on our hats. And I just hated to go in half the time. They always talked me into it because if the light didn't shine the right place, then I had to hold them, or something, so it would.
Yeah.
But they'd skin them and sell all the
Huh.
Now, we
hides.
skinned. The tail of the
No.
coyote was worth $3.
Uh-huh.
You turn that in at the courthouse, and the coon hide was worth a lot. And the badgers, coons, and we get a skunk every now and then.
But we raised our own stuff, all of it,
Yeah.
chickens but Dad had potatoes and I'd have to go out and he'd give me a little can that had kerosene in it and I'd have to pick off the potato bugs
Potato bugs, yeah.
and put them in that kerosene can. I hated that, and he always had so many of them.
Oh.
But then you didn't go to the store and buy anything. Mom made bread because when I walked home from school,
We,
scared her. When I'd get home from school at night, she'd always have a fresh loaf of bread, and I always loved the crust end of it.
Mhm.
Yep.
And she'd always have it
with
ready.
homemade butter and brown sugar on it.
Yeah, no, I didn't put brown sugar on it, I put butter. And then, she subscribed to me for the Looney Tunes comic book. Oh my gosh, I was so tickled when that came every month. That was what we looked forward to, that's what we had.
And if
it's
you
such a
had
big
all them funny books now, you could retire
I
a
know.
millionaire.
Oh, whoops, whoops.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, and there were lots of winters and things that were so very hard that Dad would have to take me to school on the tractor. And we had little tractors, Ford tractors, And, look, she was,
Yeah, Mom come and got us to school several times when we'd have a blizzard. She'd come with a tractor, and there was no comfort cab on them.
no, there was
whatsoever.
nothing on
You
them, you just
sat out there
rode
in
on
the
the
air and-
fenders.
We shouldn't have
We're
to
taking
walk
a
home.
break for a second. Gotta